All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Thank you. Oh, my goodness. That smattering of applause is, it warms my heart. It really does. And it is a great day somewhere, but not in America. That's, look, I'm a truth teller. I can't help it. This is what I do. The good news for you, if you are catching this show right now, is that there's some great people, great voices, great minds joining us. Among them, John Rothman, the historian. He knows so much about the Middle East, and there's so much going on in the Middle East. He's written a book about it, and we will talk to John about the latest developments, which certainly fly in the face of a lot of the official pronouncements around this entire thing, some of which we've talked about on this show sort of in anticipation of facts that are now increasingly coming into evidence. So, I mean, what I mean is that the propaganda is strong with this one. So we will weed through some of that. And in our second hour, and Rothman's in the first hour, Sue Halpern joins us. She has some great takes on politics, but also she has a new book called What We Leave Behind. I'll tell you more about that, and we'll get into that with Sue in the next hour. I know what you're saying. Mark, is it always politics? It is always news. It is always the heaviness. Yes, actually, that's exactly what it is most of the time. But I saw that Bobby Sherman died, and for older boys and girls, Bobby Sherman was a big deal. Look at that handsome Bobby Sherman.
I don't think I've ever even seen that guy before.
Well, that's a very interesting, odd line for someone to take who clearly had something to do with his death. I am absolutely.
Wow.
I'm blaming Kim for Bobby Sherman's passing, is what I'm saying.
I blame you.
All right, maybe my blaming Kim would be the thing that I would do if I had something to do with Bobby Sherman's death. Yeah, so it is all confusing, isn't it? But Bobby Sherman will mean nothing to many who are of Kim's vintage, young, healthy. But us older boys and girls who are breaking down and looking back on our youth with a certain wistfulness, we remember Bobby Sherman. He was a babe in the early 70s, says Patricia, or Patty. That's exactly right. He was this teen heartthrob, and he had a hit record. What is Bobby Sherman's biggest hit, asks The Surface Spins. I think... Didn't he do a song called Easy Come, Easy Go? By the way, if he did do that song, I'd put that on his headstone. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't that be a great way to...
Totally.
Yeah, sure.
Easy come, easy go.
Yeah. So I think I think Albert is looking for it now. Albert is with us today, so he is doing all of the advanced Googling, and you can see what his...
Looks like he had a lot of songs.
Oh, I mean, he was super big. And
yeah,
then I do
is.
have a Bobby Sherman.
Easy come, easy go.
It was number one. Yeah, there you go. So, again, I would put that right on that headstone, and rest in peace to Bobby Sherman. Now, I must say, he's pretty gorgeous as a young guy, as you can see. We're showing pictures of him. Mm-hmm. And I sat next to him in the weirdest thing, like life work. So, two things are weird about Bobby Sherman's life, and then I'm going to move on to what's really happening in the world. But Bobby Sherman, this teen heartthrob, was someone who had an amazing recording career. As we say, he had these hit records. He was, he was everything, right? And
this is Casey Kasem in Hollywood.
He was an amazing man with an incredible recording contract, and yet when he grew up, he couldn't sustain a career in show business.
This is Casey Kasem in Hollywood.
Yeah. So he became a paramedic, and there he is. Look at him there. That is Bobby Sherman in later years. And he became a paramedic and worked as a true, first responder in Southern California. And so his world of recording contracts and, screen idol kind of thing, it all went away. He became a paramedic at age 50, says Linda. Anyway, I went to this wedding, and who's sitting right next to me at the reception, at the dinner, at the Bobby effing Sherman. And
Did you recognize him right away?
I wish I could. I can't remember whether if I recognized him or not. I think I may have, but I'm not sure. He introduced him. He introduced himself, and the weirdest thing about Bobby Sherman, says Tom, the weirdest thing about Bobby Sherman's life was sitting next to Mark at a wedding. That may be. And there he is. I mean, like, this is super handsome dude. He could sing. He could, it's pretty amazing that he couldn't make a life for himself in show business. Shadow producer Calvin Wong says David Lee Roth tried to be a paramedic, but couldn't cut it. Anyway, long story longer. I don't remember whether I recognized him, but it was clear in introduction or whatever that he was Bobby Sherman. And we enjoyed a dinner together, and then he told me stuff about his wife. His wife was sitting there. She was kind of, I want to say she was Filipina, or maybe, Albert, she might have been. You'll find information on Bobby Sherman's wife. I want to say she's from the Philippines or Asian in some way, and in some.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
The point is that he married her, I think, late in life. He was on Emergency, one of the best TV shows of my youth, and he went into emergency services after that, says Surf and Tumbleweed. So there you go. So, I mean, he seemed perfectly happy. It just was the highest heights that he achieved in his youth. And then I guess he was on this show, Emergency. I never watched that show. And I remember hearing he built a replica of Disneyland in his backyard. No joke, says the Surface Spins. I don't know. These are all Googleable things, so it may be. I know, Asian in some way. I don't even know what that means, but that's her. There she is. I don't know. Albert, do we have any information on the wife?
I'm trying to confirm it. I'm reading through some articles right now.
We have our best people on.
Albert, thank you.
All right. So that's the situation with Bobby Sherman's passing. Again, someone that Kim had no idea about.
No.
I think some of the younger boys and girls will have no idea, but to older boys and girls, Bobby Sherman was a superstar. The other weird thing that happened that I saw, I mean, not that his passing is weird, I think an older guy, although I don't know how old he was. Do you have that information, Kim?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Okay.
81.
81, yeah.
Yeah.
The Diamondbacks have a player who's, the Arizona Diamondbacks have a player, and then I'm going to get into Iran and Israel and everything going on. They have a player that lost his mother. She died in a horrible car accident in the Dominican Republic.
Oh, no.
Yeah, exactly. It's shocking. And he went on, even through his mourning and grief, and played baseball, and was at I think it was against the White Sox in Chicago. So he's at this White Sox game playing, again, fresh off the news. I mean, I think she had died, a few days prior, et cetera. But in any case, still mourning the sudden loss of his mom.
And he's only 22. He's a pretty young guy.
Yeah, I mean, it was a real tragedy. And here he is, being consoled. And the reason he's being consoled is that he was heckled by one of the Chicago fans who yelled something about his late mother. And it got to him. And he broke down. And they ejected the fan. And you can see his teammates consoling him after this. Really again, one of those a-hole moments where you go, really? Is that what this is about now? I mean, is there no bottom? So, again, I saw that story and it was just so extraordinary to me. I had to mention it to you.
That people could be so cruel and so mean. And I get that there's heckling and, people yelling at baseball players. They like to sit close to kind of try to get in there and get in the scrum, whatever. But
Right.
I just, there has to be some humanity in the
Right.
world. That's
Thank you.
really,
Thank
really
you.
mean.
I think it's great that you use that word because I just feel as though that's one of the things that we're really losing these days is the humanity. And I think that's the case with America right now in our plans and strategies toward deportation, the way that's being handled, the way the immigrant problem, if you will, that propelled Donald Trump into office and his administration into office, the way it's been perverted into the kind of, as I say, brutality that is being displayed on the streets of America. It lacks humanity. So I'm glad that you use that word specifically.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I'll get to the immigration situation in minutes. Right now, I wanted to focus on the realities concerning the strike in Iran. Early U.S. intel assessment suggests strikes on Iran did not destroy the nuclear sites. This, according to inside sources. Strikes on 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities did not destroy the core components of the country's nuclear program and likely only set it back by months. This, according to an early U.S. intelligence assessment that was described by 7 people who were briefed on it. The assessment, which has not been previously reported, in fact, it was reported just the opposite, as you know, from
they
the
said that
president.
it was
Total
obliterated.
obliteration.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's never been anything like it. I've never seen anything like it. Oh my God, they're never going to be able to rebuild their program. We've set them back forever.
I've never seen anything like it.
The analysis of the damage to the sites and the impact of the strikes on Iran's nuclear ambitions is ongoing and could change as more intelligence becomes available. But the early findings are at odds with President Trump's repeated claims that the strikes completely and totally obliterated Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities.
Because he makes up his own facts.
And because he surrounded himself with the Amen choir that is Pete Hegseth and even Tulsi Gabbard, who initially had indicated that Iran was not close to developing a nuclear weapon, even she came over to say, what I meant was, yeah, they're only weeks away from developing a nuclear weapon. So Pete Hegseth is part of that Amen choir, and he backed up the president's original claim in comments at the NATO meetings. So they're at NATO now, and the NATO meeting started with Trump being lavished with praise by the NATO head, and I'll get to that in a little while. But Albert, let's get, just because I'm on the Hegseth thing and on the post-mortem on the bomb blasts and the damage that they did or did not do, take me to the Hegseth comments. So Hegseth, Rubio, Trump, they're all there at this meeting. And you'll hear Hegseth chime in and essentially say 2 things. I want you to listen to for 2 things. One, the Amen choir part, which is the, yes, sir, Mr. President, you're right. We obliterated them, sir. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, my gosh, they'll never develop anything ever again. And also the thing that probably says the quiet part out loud is the, I want to find out who leaked the real story that flies in the face of the propaganda that we're trying to get out there. I want to find the leakers. Go ahead.
Pete, do you have something to say about that? Well, Mr. President, when you talk to the people who built the bombs, understand what those bombs can do, and deliver those bombs, they landed precisely where they were supposed to. So it was a flawless mission. Flawless. Right down where we knew they needed to enter. And given the 30,000 pounds of explosives and capability of those munitions, it was devastation underneath Fordo. And the amount of munitions, 6 per location, any assessment that tells you it was something otherwise is speculating with other motives. And we know that because when you actually look at the report, by the way, it was a top secret report, it was preliminary, it was low confidence, All right. So this isn't, you make assessments based on what you know. They
And
don't.
they said it could be very devastating, very serious.
Moderate to severe, and we believe far more likely severe and obliterated. So this is a political motive here.
Is there a leak investigation?
Of course, we're doing a leak investigation with the FBI right now because this information is for internal purposes, battle damage assessments, and CNN and others are trying to spin it to make the president look bad when this was an overwhelming success.
We had
All right. So you hear then the way that.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
what is it? It is either there's a leak and there's this document that shows that's not as described, or you obliterated it. And if you obliterated it, then why are you so upset about a leaked version of the opposite of the story? They want their cake and they want to eat it too, and it just doesn't make sense to me.
Kim, of course, is right that, you can't have both things be true. That the intel leaked and that the intel is full of stuff that flies in the face of the propaganda and the sweeping claims of obliteration that Trump made initially. That should come as no surprise to anyone. I mean, as I said prior to this entire thing, when they were just kind of talking about what was going on in Iran and the Israeli strikes on Iran brought all the issues around Iranian nuclear enrichment, et cetera, to the fore, I said, well, the reason they built this stuff in a subterranean way was deliberately to avoid the destruction that might come with these specific munitions. They built this thing subterraneanly, if that's a word. They built it underground in view of the power that the Americans and others had to drop these munitions that could do all of this damage. So it stands to reason that the specs, if you will, on their labs and on the centrifuge placement and all the rest would be such that they would withstand this very blast that they were built to withstand. Now, there's the other narrative. They moved all of these things that were critical to their nuclear enrichment program prior to the American strike because the American strike was so well anticipated. So, again, there are several different narratives and ways you can take this in. And in all of those, it looks as though Iran anticipated this. Now, let me just say this, and we'll talk to Rothman about this in a moment, but Iran is a diminished nation militarily. They were unable to stave off the total domination of the skies that the Israelis first had and that the Americans took advantage of. They've lost their proxies. They've lost the Hezbollah proxy in southern Lebanon. They've lost the proxy they had in Syria completely as Assad is out. They've even lost a bit the power of the Houthis in Yemen. So that Iran is in a more vulnerable place, that's indisputable. But what is certainly in dispute is the success of this mission. They keep talking about the munitions. It was a 30,000-pound bomb. These pilots, there's nothing like them. No one's disputing that. What is in dispute, and it seems clearly something that over the next few days and weeks will likely continue to be in dispute, is the original claim that the nuclear program was obliterated. I'll just tell you what I think is happening here, and I think it's fairly clear. Trump saw the success of these Israeli missions early on. He felt he wanted to brand them with the Trump name, if you will. And he saw all the credit the Israelis were getting on Fox News Channel for their early demolition of so many Iranian targets. And he thought, hey, I want some credit on my favorite station too. And he went in and he did what the Israelis wanted and what's been talked about. I mean, these munitions were put in place and these strategies associated with these munitions to blow up these targets associated with nuclear enrichment, that's been talked about for years, talked about during the Biden administration, right? So he threw the switch and now he got those headlines. But what's becoming clear is the new headlines are going to call into question that propaganda that was associated with the initial blast. So I think the realities are really something different than what we're seeing. And that leaves us with questions about how to deal with Iran post-bombing and post-victory parade. I mean, we said it right away. You're taking the victory lap way too early. The race ain't over. You know, you're in mile 5 of some marathon. How long are marathons, Albert? They're long, right? How many marathon miles are typically covered?
Like 20-something miles.
Yeah, so we're like in mile 9 of your marathon, and you're telling me, all right, where's the victory stand? The Iran situation and the Middle East situation is filled with nuance. It's filled with detail. And John Rothman knows a lot of that detail. He'll be coming on in just a few moments. But that's the broad stroke of what's happening now. What's that, Kim?
The peacocking, when they don't really know what happened as far as the damage there, is wild. Crazy, crazy wild. I was reading that Trump is comparing this military strike against Iran to dropping atomic bombs on Hiroshima. And he put out this video last night that is so insensitive and inappropriate, and I worry could anger Iran because it's just so crazy. I don't even know if we can play it, but it's to the Beach Boys song Barbara Ann.
That was before my time, but yes, I'm familiar with
Oh,
it.
yeah, I'm sure. This is Bomb Iran instead of Barbara Ann, and there's video underneath the music of the bombers bombing Iran. And this is posted by the President of the United States. I mean, it's the most, and this is saying something for Trump, the most unpresidential thing I've ever seen. Wildly inappropriate, so horrifying that immediately I'm thinking, ooh, what's the big story? Because we know that it's going to be some kind of, diversion, something big is going on that they're trying to distract my attention from, because this is so crazy that it has to be that.
Yeah, well, that's just so way out of line, but in a way that's right on brand for him to do something like that. Again, he really wanted the accolades. He wanted the ticker tape parade before even 24 hours had passed since the bombing. They were talking about the Nobel Peace Prize for him on Monday. The Nobel Peace Prize, the dust hasn't even settled. The Nobel Peace Prize? I mean,
literally. The
again,
dust hadn't even settled.
The retaliation hadn't even begun,
Yeah.
right? The Iran retaliation. There's an absurdity to all of this. And Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth even know better. But they are part of the propaganda machine. They are the amen corner. So I want to get to Rothman in just about 2 minutes. But before I get to Rothman, I wanted to play for you a bit of what the disposition toward Trump is with the NATO meeting going on. So he's just arrived, as you know, for the NATO meetings, and there is lavish praise being showered onto Trump by the NATO head. And I think the reason for that is they just want America happy and in line. And so it's wild to watch it. It's as though this is a cabinet official in Trump's cabinet. I mean, they all got the hymnal. They all know what they have to sing, right? Which is, you're so great, couldn't have done this without you. You've had great ideas. Oh my God, the thought of 5% of our GDP going toward military spending. Yes, so glad. Wish somebody had brought that up sooner, sir. Yes, you're the best. Go ahead and roll it, Albert.
Seats than I do.
About your goals for NATO and Article 5 today.
We're with them all the way. I mean, if you take a look at the numbers, we're with them.
This is the Article 5 question. And Trump, of course, just is BSing his way through it. And the Article 5 question essentially, speaks to all the NATO nations coming together should there be an attack on any. But ahead of that, Albert, the very beginning, like 30 seconds into this video, I just want people to hear the lavishing of praise. This is right at the beginning of this NATO meeting in The Hague, in the Netherlands, and President Trump with the Secretary General of NATO. And here's the Secretary General speaking.
Hello, fellas. Had a big weekend. Sir. Really? See you in the plane.
They're with you on the plane?
They travel with them.
Yeah.
They have better seats than I do.
Talking about the press.
Say no. About your goals for NATO and Article 5 today.
We're with them all the way. I mean, if you take a look at the numbers, we're with them, and they have very big things to announce today. I don't know if you've taken the vote or you're going to take the vote, but I've been asking them to go up to 5% for a number of years, and they're going up to 5%. And that's a big, from 2%. And a lot of people didn't even pay the 2%. So I think that's going to be very big news. NATO is going to become very strong with us. And I appreciate doing it. Perhaps you want to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me first, before I go to the spending, I just want to recognize your decisive action on Iran.
Thank you.
You are a man of strength, but you're also a man of peace. And the fact that you are now also successful in getting this ceasefire done between Israel and Iran, I really want to commend you for that.
Thank you very much.
And I think this is important for the whole world. Then on spending, it's absolutely true. I want to state here, without President Trump, this would not have happened. In 3 stages. When you became president in 2016, 2017, you forced Europeans and Canadians to pay more. At this moment, the result of that phase is 1 trillion extra aggregate defense spending by the Canadians and the Europeans. Then came phase 2, when you became president in January last year. Phase 2 is that all the countries not yet on 2% have now committed to the 2%. This is the old goal from Wales in 2014. 7 were not on 2%. Some were saying somewhere in the 2030s. Now this year, all of them, including Canada, including Italy, including Belgium, they have all now committed to the 2%. And now comes the big splash. Today, we will decide to go to 5%. We have to keep ourselves safe from our adversaries, but also because it is fair to equalize with the United States. With this 5%, the Europeans and the Canadians will equalize their defense spending with the United States. So this is not about American taxpayers paying more. This is about Europeans, Canadians paying more. And again, this would not have happened. I'm really saying this here. And some people might criticize me, but then when I speak with them, they all say, yes, you're right. This would not have happened if you would not have been elected in 2016 and re-elected last year and back into office in January. So I want to thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's a great victory for everybody, I think. And we will be equalized very shortly, and that's the way it has to be. It's going to be a lot of money, too, a lot of defense.
Trillions extra.
Yeah, and we have a great relationship, and we've had a great relationship from the beginning. Highly respected man, and
if that's the nature of the conversation.
Appreciate you being here,
no.
too,
Let me tell you
everybody.
how great you are, how much better you are than past presidents.
Tremendous group of people on my
Thank you,
left.
Albert. Yeah, I guess that was right from the beginning. Thank you
Wow.
for that. Yeah.
Why are they kissing his rear end so much? Why is that?
I mean, I think they, as I was mentioning, they want America in the game. They want America in the NATO alliance. America really is the NATO alliance.
Yeah.
And so I think they're ready to make whatever concessions need be made, including concessions to what would be reasonable discourse. In other words, we're ready to lavish this dude with praise because we know he loves that. And whatever we have to do to stay on his good side, let's do it. So,
ouch.
I mean, Trump is such a
that was painful
creature of personal relationship that on some level, I think that carries the day. All right. I do have to get Rothman on because we're a little over time on his appointed schedule. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
I'll come back to this, and I think we'll talk about it with John. This guy is a presidential historian. He has written a book on the Middle East and knows so much about this territory, which is filled with nuance, detail, and a history that has to be considered when you look at policy moving forward. He's our former colleague at KGO Radio, John Rothman, everyone. John, what's your take on everything going on? We haven't spoken with you since the bombing mission that Trump ordered on the nuclear sites in Iran. Give us some thoughts.
The whole world is cheering at the fact that Iran has at the very least, been delayed in achieving a nuclear bomb. Make no mistake, there was a giant sigh of relief, not just in Europe, but in the broader Middle East, including the Saudis, who were really terrified of the prospect. The Israelis proved something, and you alluded to this a moment ago, and properly so, that with a properly planned program, they can be extremely effective. And they were. They decimated the political leadership, the military leadership of Iran, and they did it in their own self-interest. And make no mistake, there is political opposition to Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel, but on this point, everyone agrees he did the right thing. Donald Trump, in a sense, came along for the ride. He saw the Israelis getting great credit, and he wanted to be the one who also got credit. And the very simple fact is that the use of bunker buster bombs, no matter whether they succeeded in obliterating, if I can use Donald Trump's term, or whether they simply put a huge dent in what Iran is doing, was viewed by Israelis as a great success. And for Donald Trump, it's a great success as well. He used American military might in an effective, decisive fashion. And this, to me, is going to be a big plus for him.
It was certainly decisive, John, but how effective was it?
We don't know.
Well, let's assume then that the early intelligence on it says, the early intelligence, again, it's preliminary, suggests that it may have sent them back 3, 4, 5 months. Let's say a year. Okay. Is that sufficient?
It's not sufficient, but from the Israeli point of view and from the European point of view and from the point of view of Saudi Arabia, they're very grateful. They don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Now, let me tell you the next part of the story, and that is that Donald Trump announced this morning that there would be talks with Iran. That's a major, major moment. Now, whether it evolves into anything, I can't tell you. But the one thing everyone needs to understand is, with or without the United States, the Israelis were prepared to go all the way in terms of securing their future.
Well, this is interesting that you say this, because what I saw in Trump, and I don't want to give him too much credit, but I also, try to be fair. What I saw in Trump when he demanded ceasefire was I saw him cutting Iran a break, because I felt as though he sort of saw Iran on the ropes militarily. The Israelis, as you have correctly suggested, decapitated the military leadership, the political leadership, mostly decapitated, although it's possible that even the top mullah was going to be next, Khomeini, and they're already looking at his successor because he is in hiding. But
he has named 3 potential successors.
But my point is simply, I saw that demand for, now you guys go to your respective corners, the demand for a ceasefire as really a break for Iran, because they were, as they say, taking it hard from the Israelis.
Whether it's a break for Iran or not, I can tell you the Iranian leadership has been decimated. Their ability to move forward as they wanted to is now shattered. It is a decisive victory for Benjamin Netanyahu, who was not particularly popular with many segments of the Israeli population, but the entire opposition to Netanyahu has supported him in this action. What was revealed by Iran's use of ballistic missiles is they didn't care who they targeted. And had they had a nuclear weapon, I just want to remind people that a low-grade nuclear weapon, and I mean low-grade, could immediately, detonated over Tel Aviv, wipe out more than 1 million people. So you have to understand, we have to understand, from Israel's point of view, it's an existential threat. What Donald Trump did is what he wants to do. He wants to be perceived as a decisive, powerful leader who is not only someone who favors peace, but is willing to use decisive strength.
I think that's absolutely true. I think he's about perception. I think he's all about perception. And so you're right. It played very well into his blueprint for being perceived as a strong leader.
NATO was intimidated. Why do you think they're raising their contributions? First of all, they need the United States. NATO is essential to the security of Europe, particularly in the face of Putin and Ukraine, which we aren't even talking about, but should be front page news. And so what happened today with NATO is they said, okay, President Trump, you've demonstrated your power. You're bringing in more money for NATO. We're going to stick with you, and we want you to stick with us. And that way we are secure. By the way, who's the big loser in all of this? Vladimir Putin, because Putin no longer has firm allies in the Middle East who can defend him. Do you realize what the Israelis did? And you spoke about this a moment ago. Don't think I don't listen to you, Mark Thompson. The destruction of Hezbollah, the destruction of Hamas, the destruction of Islamic Jihad, the decimating of the Iranian political leadership, the crippling of the Houthis. All of this was accomplished because of Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israelis. It's not to America's credit. And the Israelis said very clearly, we are not going to go quietly. We are going to do what we have to do. Our survival matters to us more than anything else. And they acted decisively. And with Donald Trump tagging along, it's simply the icing on the cake.
This is interesting from Zero Sum. Trump wants Israel off Iran's back. He's helping Putin. Trump is. Putin needs the weapons, the resupplying from Iran, or he's done in Ukraine. You kind of hinted at a part of this in your last response. You want to comment on this, John?
Yes. Russia is a third world power, except that it has a nuclear capability. And every time that Vladimir Putin rattles that nuclear threat, the world has to sit up and take notice. Who is breathing a huge sigh of relief? Poland, Lithuania, Estonia. They all understood the danger of Putin. Has Putin been tamed? No. But has his alliances, his effectiveness been curtailed? I believe the answer is yes.
So so you kind of agree with the notion that Iran was supplying the drones and supplying the some of the weaponry that Putin was depending on.
We know that for sure.
To prosecute his war.
We know that for sure. So the bottom line is the world a safer place today than it was a week ago? I believe the answer is yes. Do I give Donald Trump credit? Yes. But not for anything particularly decisive, except making the decision to join with the Israelis, who were already triumphant. So whether or not the Iranian program is permanently crippled or not, the United States is now firmly aligned with Israel against Iran. Now, let me point something else out to you that I think is critical, that in the next few weeks and months, we are going to see what kind of retaliation Iran or lone wolves perform. There is a real fear in the American intelligence community of lone wolf actions. And I want to remind everybody that that is completely possible, and some have suggested to me entirely probable.
Well, let me just follow up on that then in relation to the Iran talks. If you actually have Iran sitting down and there's some kind of peace talk being crafted, there's some kind of peace agreement being crafted, there's really some kind of reconstitution of Iranian leadership and their disposition toward terror, et cetera. I mean, these are all judgments that the West can make and that the Middle East community can make and those who are party to these talks can make. But if that's happening, and then you have these one-offs, you have these lone wolf things that are essentially sponsored by Iran or in league with Iran, wouldn't that derail those talks you're talking about?
Well, that's exactly what happened when the accords between Israel and the PLO. Israel and the PLO signed an accord in September of 1993, which theoretically ended conflict. You just have to read the text of the letter that Rabin and Arafat that they exchanged. But lone wolves, and I might add radicals, including Hamas, completely derailed the Oslo process. So there's a lot.
I would even say that October 7th was a response to what was likely a warming of relations between a lot of the Middle Eastern, a handful of Middle Eastern nations and Israel.
You're correct.
And, yeah.
You're right. Saudi Arabia.
But that wasn't a lone wolf move. That was a Hamas move and sponsored in part. In fact, Iran certainly knew about it.
Oh, you're right. 100%. No dispute.
So as we move forward, John, first of all, as much as Iran has been diminished militarily, they're definitely on their heels, and there are any number of maybe good outcomes that could come from that. I'm wondering about Israel in the eyes of the world. Gaza, the specter of everything that's happened to Palestinians in Gaza, the West Bank issues in Israel. I mean, you know these issues well. I think Israel has a troubled image in the world because of Netanyahu, because of what is viewed really as a bloodthirsty policy in Gaza, even as he roots out Hamas and even as he's diminished Hamas, the human toll has been immense.
I would suggest respectfully that Israel's image in the world, even before Gaza and long before Netanyahu, was not a favorable image. Rabin did not become an icon until he was killed. I want to point that out to you, that it was Rabin who talked about crushing the bones, breaking the bones of the West Bank Arab who opposed him. So my sense is the Israelis, frankly, don't give a toot about what the world thinks of their image. Their determination is to survive. And what was the lesson that Israel learned in the last few weeks? That they were vulnerable, that the world did not stand up to protect them, that the only way they were able to defend themselves was through their own wit and will, their own armaments. And in the end, when the United States tagged along on the Iranian nuclear issue, they were thrilled. My sense is that no matter what Israel does, most of the world will condemn them. And so they're put in the position of saying, we're going to take care of ourselves first. And that's the right thing for them to do.
And John, let's go to Iran, because Iran, as we've said, and these reports of what will likely be a different kind of nuclear enrichment that they will do in pursuit of this weaponry. I mean, if it really only set their program back 3 to 6 months, even if it was a year, even if it was 18 months, they're still back on track. And let me just note quickly, there were certain parts of the Obama nuclear deal that he made. The deal had so much good stuff, though, with Iran. There were inspectors. All of their uranium had to be taken out of the country. I mean, there was so much good that Trump tore that deal up because it had Obama's name on it is still one of the huge problems that he has now. And he's trying to put together a deal that would look like Obama's. I mean, it's almost comical were it not be so serious. Yeah,
but you understand.
But I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. But I'm just what my question is. So that their program's set back a year or 18 months or just 6 months or 3 months. We don't know what it is. My question is, aren't they still in the same place where they realize, wow, we have to have nukes. Otherwise, we're going to be dealing with this every few years.
And the Israelis understand that preventing them from having nukes is a top national priority, no matter who is prime minister, which is why the conflict will be an enduring conflict, not something that can be resolved. So I say this, but I also want to point out, listen to Donald Trump blast Obama. Listen to him blast Biden. Anything with the name Obama or Biden on it, he's opposed to. And I've never, speaking now as a presidential historian, I have never heard a former president of the United States attack a predecessor as Donald Trump continues to do. And by the way, so does Pete Hegseth, and so does Marco Rubio.
Well, those are talking points. They're absolutely talking points that are constantly visited. Yeah,
it's terrible.
Pervasive. That's right.
It's terrible. And let me point out, in talking about all of this, we're losing sight of that great, big, beautiful bill. They are talking about selling off property of the United States that's now in national parks. They're talking about building roads through national parks. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is wreaking havoc on the vaccine front. You can go down the list. It is not just foreign policy here. It is what Donald Trump is doing to the nation. And that's what disturbs me greatly.
I love that you brought this up. And let me just button that out by asking you, is there a wag the dog quality to what Trump did, or was it all just he wanted to get his name on this? Was it a chance to distract from some of that, which you just talked about?
Both. They are not mutually exclusive. And that should disturb all Americans. Look, when Trump does something right, I'm willing to give him credit. The Abraham Accords, I happen to agree with taking out the nuclear facility at Fordo. I mean, I have no problem with that. But there is so much wrong with what Donald Trump is doing. You know, I made a comment the other day in a talk comparing Trump and Nixon, which is not really a fair comparison because Nixon was a much better person in many ways. But Nixon deserves credit for things that he did: the war on cancer, the Environmental Protection Agency, of the well, you can go down the list. But it didn't obviate. That's a ding word. It did not obviate you. It did not obviate the evil that he did. And what Donald Trump is doing, and I want to be very careful about this. On the radio with you, Mark, I always try to be very fair. Where Donald Trump does something I agree with, he deserves credit. But that does not take away what he is doing with American policy on so many different levels. I look at the Kennedy Center as someone who's very concerned about the arts, his distortion of the arts program, you can go down the list, but I'm not going to do that.
I mean, the one, speaking of lists, the one thing that Nixon and Trump had in common is an enemies list. And the difference between the two is that Trump is going after those who he perceives as enemies with a zeal and I would suggest a lawlessness, turning the Justice Department on his political rivals. I mean, that is just
and did you hear them this morning? Do you hear him this morning blasting CNN and the New York Times?
Yeah, I mean, but let me just say, John, and again, I'm not speaking in defense of Trump but you know this better than anyone as a presidential historian. Since the beginning of the press and media and relationships with presidents have hated the press. The press misrepresents my positions, the press misrepresents my policy, etc. We've heard that since the beginning of, as I say, the beginning
George
of the printed
Washington.
word. Yeah, but what Trump is doing is he has so, as I suggest, pursued a jihad against the press.
Weaponized.
That you have the press caving, and now you have the press completely sucking up to him in ways that bend their coverage in favor of the current administration.
It's
scary. Yeah.
No, it's scary and it's wrong, and it's not American democracy.
Now, I want to talk quickly. I only have you for another minute or so.
What?
I want to talk to you
I don't know
about,
why you keep shorting me. Go ahead.
I want to talk to you about the immigration situation.
Oh, it's terrible.
I'm of the feeling that there was a conflation of the problem at the border with, we did have a border problem, southern border, and Trump pointed to the southern border. Fox News was at the southern border. So was other conventional newscasts, and showing the stream of people coming into America through the southern border. Once you've taken care of the southern border situation, now you have these thugs on the street who claim to be ICE, claim to be feds. Most of them aren't. They're kind of militia. They're bounty. Some of them are ICE. Some of them are ICE with Marines behind them in LA. And they are picking up everybody who has a weed whacker or is waiting to work for the day at Home Depot. It is pathetic. It is unbelievable. And they are deporting people who've been in this country for decades. 50 years. They just deported somebody, arrested this guy. He's been in the country 50 years. He has grandchildren here. And he has been law-abiding for that entire time, paying taxes. I wonder if you could weigh in on this policy and what could possibly be done.
Well, I agree with you 100%. The only way to stop them is through the courts. And you understand that the lower courts seem to be ruling in the right way. The Supreme Court, on the other hand, as in a ruling this week, which was only 3 liberals opposing him, it's an amazing distortion of American justice. And when Donald Trump is gone, we will have to see that corrected. But I agree with everything you've said. I hear it from people all the time. Very good friend of mine asked me, who is Hispanic, what did I recommend? I said, carry your passport or your papers with you everywhere you go. Not that it will necessarily do you any good.
Well, exactly. They are trying to correct for the administrative errors that they've made. Remember the latest one, there's a series of administrative errors. We're trying to get that man back from, I believe he's in El Salvador right now. In
El Salvador prison.
In that max
prison.
Wait,
but you heard the Supreme Court said that if the Trump administration rounds you up, they can deport you not to your country of origin. They can send you, only 3 liberals on the court said no. All the others agreed that you can be deported to a country not of your origin.
This is a kidnapping.
It's shocking.
It's a kind of human trafficking. It's despicable.
You imagine deporting somebody to Libya, for instance, which is
Libya,
what they're talking
Sudan.
about?
I mean, Sudan has been declared unsafe for anyone except the most essential workers. And
You're
we're
right.
going to deport people there who are from Mexico. They're from Guadalajara or something.
Mark,
It's
you and I
absolutely
agree on
outrageous.
this. You and I agree on this completely. I know we have not talked about the election in New York City. That is another
Give me
topic
30
for-
seconds on this guy. He is a true socialist, a legit socialist, and he wants to, in a socialist way, say, I want to tax the rich, make public transportation affordable, and make housing affordable in this. By the way, he wants to make public transportation free in New York, and he wants to make housing affordable as well in a city which is notorious for housing being unaffordable.
Listen, we're confronting so many different issues, and you give me so little time that I'm ashamed of you. But wait, I have to ask you, do we have a date on Friday night?
We have a date on Thursday night, tomorrow night. You better
Let me look.
adjust your calendar. Thursday night at 6:30. John
Yeah,
Rothman will
I'm
be
glad you
part
told
of
me. See,
June's
I have my
swoon.
calendar right here. You're on the wrong date. I had you for Friday.
Well, you have
So
everybody's going to be there on
Thursday night,
Thursday. So yeah,
What time?
it's at 6:30 Pacific time, sir. Okay.
Are we going to be able to talk issues?
We're going to talk issues. We're going to talk whatever people want to talk about, and we've got a 2-hour window, so you should show up early, and you'll be able to have all the time you need. It's our June swoon
I will-
virtual
I will
meetup. It
confirm
is
everything. Just
June
make sure that
26th. Yeah.
make sure that your massive, well overpaid staff sends me the link.
Yeah, Kim has to send you the link. She will do that. And
Let me tell you,
in
Kim
any
is
case,
wonderful. May I just
next time
inform
I want to
people-
follow up on the mayor of New York. By the way, he's no friend of Israel, as you
No,
know.
he is not.
Yeah. And
May I just say, Kim's daughter is at this moment on the experience of a lifetime in Germany. And I want you to tell your daughter that we wish her every success. I know she's going to have a wonderful experience. And Kim, I can't wait to hear all about it, but give her my love and tell her it's great.
oh,
I'm
Thanks,
very
John.
lucky.
yeah.
I have a picture taken with Kim's darling daughter, which I treasure.
Yeah. She is terrific. And
Kim, how are you?
I can't wait until she gets into the workforce and she can join this show.
It'd be a
And,
great interview.
well,
I'd love to hear your impression.
I'd like to replace her mom with her daughter, who will work at half the money, which is the best part.
Hey, Kim, did you hear that? Mum's the word.
All right. So stay in touch. We'll see you tomorrow night. John
See you tomorrow
Rothman.
night.
everybody.
Thank you so much. Oh, support the show. Everybody,
Support the
before
show.
I
Thank
go,
you, pal.
You make sure you become a supporter of the Mark Thompson Show. If you want this to continue in the elegant, did you hear that?
I heard it. Elegant. Yeah.
Elegant and constructive fashion, it has to be supported. Otherwise, well, you know what happens. All right. See you
Thank
later.
you, my friend. All right. John Rothman, everybody. Thank you, my friend. All right. John Rothman, everybody.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
We have a great mind joining us out of the last great mind, and she'll be here shortly with a new book as well. I'm particularly bothered by the Sue Halpern is her name. I'm sure you're familiar with her, read her stuff, maybe in the New Yorker, etc. Particularly bothered, as you know, by the ICE stuff. I know we've talked a lot about Iran and Israel in the first hour, but I find the ICE deportations and the strategy of ruthlessness that has informed these policies, I find them so grotesque and loathsome that I want us always, every day, to talk about them in some way, Kim. I do not want one episode of this show ever to go by without us at least touching on these stories. There are so many stories, and there are so many earnest immigrants who are here seeking a better life with a legal path to citizenship. They are seeking asylum. That is a legal way you can live in this country. And they have residence in this country. They have jobs. And they have court dates. And they're showing up at these court dates and they're being arrested and thrown into prisons. They have no criminal records at all.
So they're trying not to break the law and they're being penalized for that. This
Exactly.
was supposed to be, we're going to get rid of the criminals, the people who are here committing crimes. I was looking at a CBS investigation that says ICE is holding a record 59,000 immigrant detainees. Half of them about have no criminal record.
And
Half of them. So
the
we're not
private
detaining the
private
criminals.
prison business, just because you're talking about such big numbers, is expanding in this country, and it's getting healthier on the backs of this blueprint for immigration reform. It's absolutely unconscionable. And as you say, you tell us you're going to get rid of violent criminals. Those are the ones first. Those
Well,
aren't the ones first.
No.
And these policies on immigration are not popular. What's popular is handling the immigration problem, and it was viewed largely as a border issue. The border issue has been talked about for years. I mean, there was an actual strategy to handle the border situation. Biden talked about that. There was even a bipartisan but largely GOP authored bill to handle that bleeding at the border, if you will. They were going to stop the bleeding with more immigration judges. There were a bunch of things in that bill, all of which were derailed because Trump felt, and the GOP felt, because they had fealty to Trump, that they wanted to use it as a political cudgel, and they did. But now there's a conflation of what was happening at the border and what's going on in the streets of America. And it's just, these stories are incredible. And I know I've got Sue waiting here in just a minute, but you see this guy, Barranco, this Narciso Barranco. He's a 48-year-old undocumented landscaper, has lived in the United States for decades. They chase him down the street with guns. They pin him to the ground and they hit him as he's handcuffed. These big dudes are just pounding away on this guy. Barranco's oldest son, Alejandro, served in the Marines for 4 years and is a veteran. Barranco's 2 younger sons are active duty Marines.
So these are people that came here and they're serving our country.
His son, Alejandro, is saying that he's being held, his father, with at least 70 other people with one toilet and no privacy. He's received very little water and even less food and no medical attention after that beatdown. These ICE detentions and the way in which they are just turning bounty hunters loose on the streets, and they're going by car washes and Home Depots and Lowe's, by quinceañeras, high school graduations, it's unconscionable. It is un-American. Everyone, regardless of your political allegiances, you should be repulsed by this. You should be angered by this. I want us to talk about this every goddamn day. It's wrong. Now I'll say something totally ridiculously superficial. Hit the like button, which is what you need to do on this goddamn platform to
Smash it
support
with your
the show.
iron rod.
Do that. And I'll have a brilliant writer for you next, Mark Thompson.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
What a pleasure to have our next guest with us. She writes about politics, technology. She is the author of several books, bestsellers. A Dog Walks into a Nursing Home is one of them. 4 Wings and a Prayer. That was made into a film. She's a columnist for Mother Jones, written for the Smithsonian Magazine, written for the Times Magazine, Rolling Stone, the New Republic, as well as the New York Review of Books. She is a brilliant, prolific writer and scholar in residence at Middlebury College, where many years ago I toured that campus, potentially thinking about going to Middlebury. it would be hard to imagine that I would have anything in common with this brilliant person, but she went to Oxford and I went to Oxford. I know, it's incredible. How about it for the magical Sue Halpern, everybody?
Thank you. Thank you.
Sue, of course, you're a Rhodes Scholar. I couldn't even drive by the Rhodes Scholar program with my history. I'm grateful for you being here. I have your new book that I will talk to you about, and there'll be a click through for your book under this video. I want you to know your new book is called What We Leave Behind, and we are going to talk about that. But before I get to the book, would you mind giving me a couple of minutes on where you see the world of America, how we fit into the rest of the world? If you could just, I'd love your perspective for just a minute or two.
You know, we spent a long time promoting ourselves as the, avatar of democracy and of equality and, a nation of laws. And we've lost that. We have absolutely no right to that mantle anymore. And it's so disturbing. It's disturbing for how we are seen in the world, but I think for those of us who live here, it's even more disturbing. You were just talking about people who were, doing their job, who were chased down by men in masks who we can't see, who are using the cudgel of the state to do things that no state should do. And a state that considers itself to be a democracy, I mean, that's just outrageous. So, we're all living through this. We're not sure exactly what to do, how to do it, except to bear witness and talk about it and protest and do the things that we do, and hope that it works. Right now, we're just relying on the courts, and that's a bet that I don't think most of us want to take.
Yeah, that's increasingly a weak course of change, that is to say, of return to some kind of magnetic north. We've really lost our way, and the courts have been spotty, really, in trying to get us back. And so it's hard to imagine, Sue, that we can hit the reset button. I keep hearing about the midterms and the next election. Really? I mean, this is not a crew that's anxious to give up power.
Right.
And,
Right. So one of the things I think that's happening, and it's really, really scary, is that while all of this activity is going on that we're all appalled by, the Republican Party is very systematically across the country undermining voting rights, passing laws that make it really, really hard for people to vote. And, people are saying, oh, well, wait 2 years, we'll have the midterm elections. Yeah, we might have something that looks like a midterm election, but we might not have the people being able to express their will. And I mean, this has been a project of the Republican Party for decades, but with the courts in their favor and the Congress in their favor and the executive, definitely in their favor, it is getting harder and harder to maintain, voting rights as we hope they should be. I mean, we're lucky in a way that we are a nation in which the states control voting, but Trump is trying to federalize that through the SAFE Act in Congress. So it's passed the House. I don't think it'll pass the Senate, but it tells you what they would like to do. And so it may be a fool's errand to wait for 2 years for the midterms.
Thank you. I also think that, we've seen what's happened in Los Angeles, the way the presence of federal troops has been road tested in Los Angeles to some success, and I wonder if that as you say, that kind of mission creep of federalizing everything isn't something that we're going to be dealing with when it comes to elections.
Well, yesterday, a Democratic Socialist Muslim brown man won the Democratic primary for mayor. And you can bet on this that will increase the number of federal intrusions into whatever happens in New York City, whether it's more ICE, whether it's taking away congestion pricing. Who knows what it's going to be, but whatever it's going to be something that will attempt to, I don't know if it's going to federalize it, but we'll see more of a federal presence in a city like New York.
Sue, are you surprised by the fact that the GOP has been so completely dominated, cowed, intimidated by this man, Donald Trump?
Not really. I mean, people who get elected to Congress have a vested interest in keeping those jobs. And if you cross Donald Trump, they'll primary you and they'll make your life miserable, and you'll do what Adam Kinzinger said, and I don't want to do this anymore. This is stupid. And so you end up with all the, toadies and the people who are desperately wanting to hold on to jobs as opposed to having any particular interest in representing the best interests of their constituents.
The pushback on certain people you made me think of it actually when you said toadies, in his cabinet who are such obvious suck-ups, but also incompetent. It's a marriage of fealty and utter incompetence. And I wonder, I'm thinking of RFK Jr. and how he is completely upending the way public health has been approached in this country. And, you talked about the fact that we were always put on a pedestal when it came to justice and the way that the courts favored no one in this country. At least that was the ideal that America aspired to. Similarly, we were put on a pedestal when it came to the greatest scientific minds coming here and developing great treatments for disease and exporting those treatments. All of that has changed. And I'm wondering if you can just speak to how any pushback from the public, because I do think Trump on some level is sensitive to a pushback or bad media, might be able to pick off, if you will, some of these people, the RFK Juniors of the world, the high profile incompetence in his administration.
I think Pete Hegseth obviously is incompetent, and everybody knows that. The people who work for him know that. We've read articles about how they think he's, such a lightweight. RFK Jr. is a little different, unfortunately, because unlike a cabinet member like Hegseth, RFK Jr. has a kind of groundswell of support of certain people in this country. His Maha people, and they run the gamut. They're not necessarily all MAGA people. A lot of them are, left-wing nutballs, who will never vaccinate their children, for instance. So I think he's a problem in part because Trump sees that there are people who appreciate RFK Jr. I also think that Trump and RFK Jr. have made a very, very significant mistake, which is that their apparent chief rival, China, is going to suck up all of this scientific expertise, all of these scholars. They're gonna recruit them, not necessarily for the Chinese project, but because they have the will to do it, and then we're going to see the scientific kind of center of the world shift from the United States to China. And that can't be good for the United States.
Oh, that's so true. I mean, I think the brain drain is already beginning. We're just seeing more and more distinguished researchers, self-deporting now because they're so worried about ending up in some gulag somewhere in the world. It's such a good point. And also, I think your appraisal and summary of the support that RFK Jr. has is so right on. I mean, COVID, didn't it, Sue? I mean, COVID kind of reset that. All of a sudden, you know, these, what might have been called the quackery of RFK Jr. became legitimized by questions around the COVID vaccine.
Yep. Unfortunately, that's true. And now, you know, we're not going to have a new COVID vaccine. We're probably not going to have a new flu vaccine, or at least it's not going to come from a consortium of American scientists working with scientists from around the world. We're going to have to rely on the scientists from around the world, which may be fine. But, you know, one of the things that happens in pharmaceutical companies is if you don't have enough people, you know, purchasing their goods, or in this case, insurance companies deciding that, you know, it's in the best interest of their clients to have these vaccines, they're not going to sell them. You know, I wrote a story a couple of years ago about the Lyme disease vaccine. There was a Lyme disease vaccine. It got overwhelmed by essentially the Maha crew, and even though it continued to exist, no one would buy it. No pharmacy would buy it. No doctor would prescribe it, and they couldn't sell it, and that was the end of it. This is going to change, I hope. But I'm just saying, like, it's not just a matter of, you know, the government's not going to support this research. If there's not a critical mass of people who are able to get a vaccine or want to get a vaccine, it's not going to become available, because that's how capitalism works.
That's, I think, really the cornerstone of it. You know, my thing with big pharma is not that big pharma is bad. It's that big pharma creates expensive treatments, and a lot of the cures or a lot of these vaccines are just so very expensive. Underwritten by the federal government is a lot of that research. But, you know, as you suggest, it may, there it is. That's your piece. Why it took so long to develop a new vaccine for Lyme disease there in the New Yorker. You know, I had Lyme disease, and it's brutal. And they got it after, with me, 38 days. And the reason I remember that is because, as you know, when you get Lyme disease, if it's discovered in time, and that time is really clicking along, it's literally by the hour, you can eradicate it, or you may be dealing with it for the rest of your life. And it attacks your vital organs. It attacked my heart. It attacked my joints. It was scary. And as I say, it was ultimately eradicated, but it took time to diagnose it, because it doesn't always manifest as something obvious. So just that example is a powerful one.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful that you're writing on it and that you comment on it. Now I want to ask you about your book. So your book is What We Leave Behind. And give us a sense of what we leave behind and what you're writing about.
So I'm really interested in this question of nature versus nurture, what we get from our parents, and the environment that we're raised in. And so I wanted to try to explore that in a novel, as opposed to writing an article or even a book about that. I'm sure there have been a lot of books written about that. But I wanted to do it in a kind of narrative way that would allow you not to have it sort of hit you over the head with it, but just so that you can read a story and think about it. I'm pretty good at kind of distilling science, but this isn't that. This is really a story of two very different people from very, very different backgrounds who come to this question in part, in one case because of an adoption, and the other case it's a woman who is very successful, looks very successful, and maybe because of the way she's been brought up, has never really just asked herself kind of the critical question of life, which is, does your life have meaning, and are you happy? So it kind of gets at that.
So just to understand, these are then emotional legacies that are, in a way, imprinted by parenting, by the people you grow up around?
Yeah, some of it is that, and some of the question, and one of the questions is to what extent that, you know, you can call it an emotional legacy, but it may be more than that. It's like, we look at someone and look at their parents and say, oh, that mannerism is exactly the same as, your dad or whatever it is. It must be genetic, which is an interesting point, because it might not be genetic. It might be that you grew up with this person and you've now copied their mannerisms. So some of it is, a lot of it's emotional, yes, but it still raises this question of, to what extent your behavior is almost predetermined by, these things we can't even see that are kind of, the mechanisms and the machinery inside our bodies.
Yeah, it's super intriguing, and I have to say that I see, when we talk about emotional legacy or whatever, I see the outlook of people informed so immensely by the outlook they grow up around. I know that in my own case, of course, you always turn to your own situation because you're so familiar with it, but I think that's part of it, right?
Yeah. I think often it's how you've been brought up. Often it's in opposition to how you've been brought up.
Oh, that's
right?
fascinating. Yeah.
In the case of this one person in one of the characters in the book, it appears to be in opposition to how she was brought up, but in fact, it replicates a lot of how she was brought up, but she doesn't see it. And I think that's true for a lot of us. We think we're so different than our parents. We've tried to be so different from our parents, and then yet, especially like when then you have children and you're like, oh, now I get it. Now I get it.
Yeah, even the phraseology you use, or whatever, the way, certain expressions you have, it's like, oh my, or whatever, the way, certain expressions you have, it's like, oh my God, it's the very things that annoyed me.
Right, exactly.
And I said I would never fall into. That's who I am, without giving anything away. So the journey that your protagonist or lead character is on takes them to a crisis where they have to sort of deal with this, or I always imagine that's sort of where a novel is headed.
Well, there are two characters. There are two stories that are running on parallel tracks, and eventually they collide. And in one case, it is a kind of a crisis that happens. In the other case, it's something quite the opposite of a crisis. It's something wonderful that happens that throws into, the kind of mental chaos, like, oh, do I deserve this? Should this be happening to me? Can I accept it? So, sometimes the crisis doesn't look like a crisis because it's something really good. And I just want to say that, as you know, I've written a ton about politics and technology and all of that. And the reason why I wrote this book was because I really needed a mental vacation from all of that. And I think we all need places to go, whether they're physical places or mental, emotional places to go, to just take a breather. And that's why I wrote the book, for myself. Because I always try to write something that I want to read. But I think that that's true across the board. I think we all need to take a breath and do the things that are restorative. For me, it's reading stories, reading novels. For some people, it's, playing pickleball, whatever it is. But I really do think that things are so dramatically awful. And if we spend all of our time sort of living in that, I think we won't be able to get out of it. And so I think we do need to spend some time doing things that are just kind of restorative. And as I say, for me, it's reading and writing.
Well, it's such good advice, regardless of what that restorative thing is. And what we leave behind, we'll have a link to it under this video so you can get it. I can't let you go without dragging you back to something that you just do know so well, and that is politics and technology. I wonder if you can answer two questions for me. We got a lot of comments. We've even had guests talking about the manipulation of the vote through Starlink and through Musk's presence in everything, the notion that he might have known ahead of time the outcome, and there have been, all the stuff that you've seen, there have been, comments and podcasts about that. Rogan commented on his podcast. Can you just give me your thoughts on that? And I have one follow-up, has nothing to do with the election, but if you can just give me your thoughts on that one.
Yeah. So, I spent many years trying to write things to debunk the conspiracy theories of the right wing about stolen elections, rigged elections, machines that flip votes, that sort of thing. And so there's part of me that's incredibly allergic to that kind of sensibility and those arguments that are now coming from the other side. And yet at the same time, I don't want to be a Pollyanna and say this couldn't happen. But there are reasons why I think that it's sort of a fool's game to engage in this. Part of the reason is that the way that our votes are tallied, it's very piecemeal. So you'd have to be incredibly strategic. You'd have to target, particular precincts in the swing states. You'd have, like one of the things that's been circulating is like, look at Rockland County, New York. Look what happened there. Well, okay, it's possible that something untoward happened there, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters a kind of like, in an existential way, but it didn't have any effect on the election.
And just to be clear, for those who may not be familiar, the Rockland thing is essentially suggests that there were no votes top of ticket for president, yet there were all these votes for Democratic senators. So the idea somehow that you could vote for a Democrat for down ticket races and yet not vote for Kamala Harris for president, you'd leave that blank is just an odd fact. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it is very possible that that's exactly what happened. It's possible that there was someone manipulated the machines. It's possible that there was a glitch in the machines. It's possible that people never voted for Kamala Harris.
But you're saying it's not relevant in any case to the outcome.
No, no, and I think you'd have to see a conspiracy that worked in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, all the swing states, and I don't think we're seeing that. The other thing is I have not heard from the people who I have used as sources in the past to talk about voter manipulation. It's again, it's possible the Republicans took the Dominion software. They had the Dominion software, before this last election. So it's possible, but it seems highly unlikely. And those sources have not come out and said, yes, this is probably what happened. So if I'm not hearing from them, and they're, academics, so they don't have skin in the game of, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. And honestly, I think the most effective way to manipulate an election is to buy Twitter and have, and have Truth Social and take away all your guardrails on Facebook and manipulate the American people with misinformation, disinformation, all sorts of things. That's a way more effective way of rigging an election, I think, and it worked.
Well, boy, did it ever. I'm going to let you go. I have questions about AI, but I'm going to table them till maybe we'll corral you again for another talk. It's so great to meet you, Sue, and just your work is really deserving of all the accolades. Again, What We Leave Behind is the latest. The novel is something you can buy under this video. There'll be a link, and I congratulate you. It's not easy to write, and you are prolific. I really don't know how you do it, but again, great to meet you, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mark, and keep up the good work, please.
Thank you. All right. Sue Halpern. Bye-bye.
Take care.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Right on. Right on. Wow, she's great. Really great.
I could listen to that interview going on and on and on. That she was
Yeah.
awesome.
I definitely wanted to let her. Yeah. I definitely wanted to let her go because I think we kept her a little long. But
Yeah.
I definitely want to have her. Will be a return visitor.
Yeah.
And she makes such good points. I'm looking at the chat, and I can really. How do you contract Lyme disease? Oh, you get it through a tick bite. That's how you get it. And I will just round that point out. I mentioned that I had Lyme disease. You're talking about it in conjunction with RFK Jr. and the Lyme vaccine completely was derailed because of the RFK Jr. Backbeat and push against it. I mean, sort of the anti-vaxxers, if you will. And Lyme disease is an incredibly debilitating, horrible illness. And so I had it, and they got it early enough that they were able to eradicate it. But you get it from a tick bite. And the reason I return to this, just to round out the point, is I had certain symptoms of Lyme disease, but they all manifested in a sequence, meaning you don't get them all at one time. And so if you look at the description of those things you get with Lyme disease, the rash, the fever, low-grade thing, the sore throat, the swelling of joints, heart involvement, all these things, they don't all hit you at once. They hit you, and then certain things linger. I had incredible aches, but I mean like otherworldly aches and otherworldly sore throat, etc. And as they were trying to figure out what it was, they asked me, well, have you been camping at all? And I said no, because I don't go camping. I'm envious of people who do go camping.
But you do hike.
Do not. Yeah, but even that is done. I hike on city roads. I don't go out really backcountry hiking. So the answer always to me was easy. No, I haven't been camping. I haven't been camping in years. Not since I was a Boy Scout have I been camping.
You were a Boy Scout?
That's another story. But what they really were asking was, have you been anywhere where you might have been around nature to the point you would get a tick bite or whatever? I didn't know much about Lyme disease. No one was saying anything about Lyme disease to me. They just asked me, have you been camping? Yeah. Well, of course, I had been to rural Maryland for a wedding. And that's where I was bitten by a tick.
Oh, wow.
And you don't, in most cases with Lyme, you don't ever notice the tick bite. And I had all of the symptoms of Lyme disease. It would be like Wheel of Fortune. If you played Wheel of Fortune, all the letters turned and the doctor's going, God, I just can't quite figure it out. What is it? And it was a doctor who is a rheumatologist, because my joints were blowing. I couldn't walk anymore.
Oh, wow.
My joints, I'd wake up and my knees and ankle joints were completely swollen. And I mean, it happened in hours. And I thought they thought maybe I had rheumatic fever.
Oh, geez.
And I went to this rheumatologist, and she tested me for Lyme disease. And it was only her test. But in that same period, I had to go to Cedars-Sinai for a heart condition, because my heart they wanted to hospitalize me right away. I mean, it was that intense. So you're really looking at the brink if you don't get it in time. And the effed up thing, if I can just put it that way, is that it's treated with this sort of run-of-the-mill antibiotic, doxycycline, I think it's called. And that will eliminate it, but you have to catch it in the first month. So in any case, for those of you who might be looking in, who suffer with what they call late Lyme, when the Lyme disease hangs on, it attacks your immune system, you're on antibiotics, a whole series of antibiotics, these antibiotic cocktails that you have to continue to administer to yourself through your life. I mean, my heart breaks, because it's really, really rough, and it can affect your ability to think and to enjoy life. And so anyway, that's my Lyme disease story. T-shirt idea, says Rick. I went to Maryland and all I got was ticked and Lyme.
It's amazing
Yeah.
that there's a Lyme disease vaccine. I had no idea.
Nor did I until Sue
Mhm.
mentioned it.
Yeah.
You know, incredible. No more weddings for you, Mark says. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Oh, and Nullifidian, thank you for that. How about a $5 super sticker? Thank you. Really haven't mentioned much about fundraising today,
Big
but
shout
I
out.
really appreciate everybody who does support the show financially because we're an NPR PBS model. We're here because you support the show, and we put the names of everybody who supports our show through Patreon and PayPal at the end of every show. They're updated once a month, and I hope that your name will be up there soon as a supporter of this show because that'll allow us to continue. Joan Hollywood, who will be at the meetup
Yay!
tomorrow night at the June Swoon event, a $5 super sticker. Big shout out. Yeah, you should have received the link to tomorrow's June Swoon for Thursday night's June Swoon. You should have received it. I've sent out all the links. So if you haven't received it, please contact me at themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com and tell me so that we can make sure you get it. SCOTUS deportation to third country ruling is, again, SCOTUS said it's legal to deport these people who are detained by ICE, by the federal government. It's legal to deport them to a third country. Louis says the SCOTUS deportation to third country ruling equals outsourcing concentration camps elsewhere so the negative optics aren't seen or covered by the media. #scary. I completely agree. These are concentration camps. The deportation center that's going to be built in Florida, they're calling it what? Alligator Amazon or something? What is it called?
Alligator Alcatraz.
Alligator Alcatraz. That is a concentration camp, and there are more of them coming.
Because it's in the middle of the Everglades on this old abandoned land that's not used for anything, but it's also an alligator territory. You can see it in your mind's eye, this building surrounded by, wire fencing with alligators around like a moat. It's just so creepy.
It's also medieval,
Yeah.
but this crew knows no bottom. But what happens to these people and the way they have taken so many of these sweet souls, I'm moved by it. It's awful. That's why I want to talk about it every goddamn day. It's absolutely wrong. And I hope I'll have a chance to talk about it on this platform. I really do. I don't know if this platform is going to vanish soon, but I do know right from wrong. And this is wrong, what's happening to these people. And these deportees, in the main, are people who have lives that support this culture and this country. And so it's Swoonteenth Eve. Thank you, Richard, for pointing this out. A $5 super chat. It's Swoonteenth Eve. I'm there. Can't wait. Yeah. I hope everybody got their links. Kim, can I shoehorn some news in here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do some news and commentary. Smash that like button like a boss.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Give us a thumbs up. It helps us in the YouTube algorithm a little bit, so that costs you nothing. I appreciate that. Also, please subscribe to the show and do hit the notification bell. That way you'll know whenever we're dropping a new video. There is a great conversation that's going to drop this weekend. I want to make sure that you at least get a chance to what are our meetup plans, says CBD, if this platform disappears for you? Well, we can, the meetup is not on this platform. It's on Zoom. But I don't know. We have to develop a backup plan. I'm looking over.
Like if we wake up one day and YouTube is just.
Yeah, like how can they? I mean, I guess you would find it on themarkthompsonshow.com, wherever we were. We would tell you where we were at themarkthompsonshow.com. But for now, we're here, and I'm glad we're here, and I hope we continue here for a long time. So, Kim's news, and we will wrap up Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson
Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show. Hello, can you hear me? I'm
Now
Kim
I hear you.
McAllister. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. President Trump is going after the news media for reports claiming the Iran strike wasn't as effective as he thinks it was. While flying back to D.C. from the NATO summit in the Netherlands, Trump called the outlets bad and sick people. In a new post, he insists the United States strike on Iran's nuke sites obliterated its capabilities and that new intel reports will show that. His post comes just as Fox News reports the Trump administration will now limit the sharing of classified information with Congress. Trump says the United States, by the way, could have overtaken Iran's oil supply, but he said the country will need that money to get back on its feet. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Iran is now much further away from building a nuclear weapon after U.S. airstrikes over the weekend. Rubio's comments come after reports claim the attacks only delayed Iran's nuclear program by a few months, while President Trump insists the sites were again obliterated. Rubio offering a more reserved take, saying the strikes still made a significant impact.
Rubio is one of the more pathetic folders, to use a poker term. I mean, he's just sort of folded to this guy, folded long ago, little Marco. They've given him more and more. So, I mean, if he just wants power, he's got it. But, it's worth noting that he's handling now, check this, Albert, you can Google what Marco Rubio is doing. I understand he's Secretary of State, but remember they got rid of, what's his name? Is it Walls, the head of, remember the guy who set up the Signal chat and brought in the guy from the Atlantic? Remember that guy? So that guy, they finally dumped him. Okay, and he was head of the, help me, Albert.
Google it.
What was he head of? He was head of the National Intelligence. All right. Anybody? No? Anyway.
How
Walls,
quickly we forget that guy. It was Waltz with a T, I think.
Yeah, Waltz with a T. Anyway, regardless of how he says his name. Everybody knows how to say his name, but they can't remember what the hell he did? Come on!
Google it.
Anyway, the point is...
He was the National Security Advisor.
Thank you, the National Security Advisor. I knew it, but I was waiting for one of you to come up with it. So anyway, National Security Advisor, and they got rid of him. Okay.
Yeah, they made him a U.S. ambassador to the UN.
Right. So they got rid of him and his staff. So that because everybody, with him goes everyone. And Rubio, they just said, hey, little Marco, you'll handle that too. So Rubio's handling Secretary of State and that. But when it comes to situations like Iran, where you're talking about crisis management and you're talking about handling what really happened and any number of things related to intelligence and national security, Rubio is supposed to handle it. He doesn't have any staff. There's no way to handle this crisis situation. So Trump, in his effort, of course, he had to get rid of Waltz because Waltz set up that Signal chat thing. In his effort to do these things, he sacrifices some of the muscularity of the U.S. government because he has, one guy doing a job that would be done by 18, 19, or even 20 people. I mean, Waltz had a big staff. So that's what's happening with Marco Rubio. So as he, serves up these quotes, it just to me is laughable how this guy has completely caved to the Trumpian view of the world.
There are about 2 million Americans at risk of getting their wages garnished because of unpaid student loans. TransUnion reports 6 million borrowers are classified as newly delinquent as of April, meaning a borrower is 90 days behind on their payments. About a third of those newly delinquent could enter default as soon as July. Nearly half of the United States is sweltering in what forecasters are calling an extremely dangerous heat wave. Hot summer temperatures up to 20 degrees above normal were in the forecast from Maine to Texas yesterday. More heat is expected today, with some cooling off finally expected on Thursday. In other wild weather news, there was a situation where a dozen people in South Carolina were injured after a lightning strike that happened at Lake Murray. 20 people were assessed at the scene, 12 taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries because of lightning at the lake. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is set to appear in federal court in Nashville today. He was deported to El Salvador earlier this year before being returned to the United States in what's turned into somewhat of a flashpoint for the Trump administration and their illegal immigration policies. A judge is expected to release Garcia ahead of his trial on human smuggling charges, but it's likely he'll be immediately redetained by ICE.
I mean, this is a mistake that has turned into a court case and a cause celeb. This poor man was, thrown into this Venezuelan gulag. Just a brutal fate he's already endured. Now he's going to be released from jail and then taken back into immigration custody because they hate this guy, not because of anything he did, because they made a mistake. And they arrested him to begin with. They deported him illegally, and now they're making a point of being deliberately cruel to him.
Why are you yelling?
It's just not consistent with anything that he's really done. It's just that they are trying to cover their ass. So they don't want him out there giving interviews, in any way being the focus of attention. So they want to rearrest him right away, not because he's a flight risk. It's, again, one more facet of a rotten to the core strategy of going after this community.
The Trump administration must hand over documents detailing the actions of military personnel in Southern California. A federal judge made the ruling yesterday. It is connected with the state's legal fight against the federal government challenging Trump's deployment of thousands of California National Guard troops and Marines to Los Angeles. They were deployed earlier this month to respond to violent anti-ICE protests. So the Trump administration must hand over photos, internal reports, and other evidence in this case. By the way, the California National Guard and the Marines are still in Los Angeles. They're deployed for 60 days.
Oh, yeah. They're not going anywhere. Remember, Kristi Noem said that she wants to liberate Los Angeles from the socialist mayor.
A group of people recently detained by ICE agents in Pasadena. They were reportedly heading to help with the Eaton fire recovery efforts. Pasadena Mayor Victor Gordo says 6 men detained at a bus stop last Wednesday were on their way to help rebuild Altadena. In the past week, ICE agents have reportedly taken 14 people into custody in Pasadena. On Monday, the Pasadena City Council approved a resolution officially condemning federal immigration raids. Southern California.
I'm sorry to always talk about it, but I just like these federal immigration raids. Where the hell are they raiding? I mean, is there any real police work going on or detective work on the part of this ICE community to root out these violent criminals, those with gang ties? I thought you guys told me you're going to go after all of them. No. You're going to somebody's quinceañera. You're going to high school graduations. You're going to Home Depot, to Lowe's.
Bus stops.
You're arresting maids and landscapers, some guy who's edging a lawn. Are you effing kidding me, man? Aren't you people ashamed? You should be ashamed. Ashamed. Go ahead.
A Southern California elected official faces backlash over a social media post that appears to call on gang members to resist immigration raids. Cynthia Gonzalez, who's the vice mayor of Cudahy in Southern California, is under fire for a video where she described ICE as the biggest gang there is. The post has since been deleted, and city officials say her comments don't reflect the views of that city. The so-called Alligator Alcatraz, being touted as a much-needed detention facility for undocumented immigrants in Florida. It's planned to be constructed in the Everglades near Miami-Dade County. Governor Ron DeSantis insists jails are starting to get overcrowded, and the land where this would be built is virtually abandoned. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell says President Trump's tariff threats put the brakes on possible interest rate cuts. Testifying before Congress yesterday, Powell said he was considering a cut until concerns about inflation from the tariffs changed his mind. He also
so Trump, who wants him to cut so badly and is dumping on Powell for not cutting interest rates, is the reason that he can't cut rates, because you, Mr. President, have imposed these tariffs, which are clearly inflationary. And now, to battle inflation, he's got to keep the rates where they are. He can't lower them.
And he says a July rate cut is unlikely too. So There
Oh,
you
there could
go.
be, and there could be
Mhm.
more inflation in the pipeline, as it turns out. So, yeah.
Speaking of money, California lawmakers and Governor Gavin Newsom have finalized a budget to close a $12 billion deficit without major cuts to healthcare. The deal includes a freeze on new Medi-Cal enrollments and a $30 monthly premium for patients with unsatisfactory immigration status, was what they're calling it. The National Highway Transit Safety Administration is looking into last weekend's inaugural deployment of Tesla's self-driving robotaxis. The service launched in Austin, Texas, with influencers using the service and then posting videos of their trips. Those videos have drawn the attention of the government because some of the cars appeared to have difficulty with traffic laws, speeding, and crossing double yellow lines. The Tesla robotaxi not off to a good start.
Yeah,
There
they go to
is
Austin, which is, the
Mhm.
place. Austin's kind of the wonderland of all the tech bros. They're down there now with Elon, and they're down there with Joe Rogan and all their crew. Austin's their little tech paradise that they built in the middle of Texas. And it's interesting to see a couple of things happen in Austin, Texas. One is the price of housing, and the price of a lot of things is going up because you have all this influx of wealth with the tech people, the same way San Francisco
Yeah.
and the Bay Area suffered as there was this influx of money, and it was beneficial in many ways, but it also drove up the price of everything, most of all, of course, housing. And now a lot of that's happening in Austin. Of course, there's a huge gap between San Francisco and Austin. But then as they try to impose sort of their tech nirvana on Austin, it's not without some hitches along the way. So it's kind of interesting to watch that proceed.
Where was I? Oh, did you hear about this story? This is crazy. This cargo ship that had been burning for multiple weeks has reportedly sunk off the coast of Alaska. The New York Times reports the Morning Midas is the name of this ship, sank after taking damage from this fire and severe weather. It was carrying close to 3,000 cars, and none of the cargo was salvaged before it went down.
I remember this when it happened. I remember, I think we actually talked about it. The fact that the only reason I kind of remember is because of the cars. I think we talked about it, but I don't remember anything after that. You're saying it sank, and
Yeah.
there's no effort to. I guess it's just too hard to try
Well,
to pull it out of the water.
In the middle of the sea, I guess.
Yeah, I
You
guess. And
can't.
it's a
Yeah,
it's a
it had been
freezing
burning for
cold,
multiple weeks, and finally it's gone down.
stormy world. God, that's wild.
3,000 cars. Just crazy. A private space mission is now en route to the International Space Station for astronauts aboard Axiom Space's AX-4 mission launched overnight from Kennedy Space Center. They're riding in a SpaceX Dragon capsule named Grace. They'll spend 2 weeks aboard the International Space Station. It is the fourth private mission of its kind to the station.
And are they're scientists, or what are they?
They're astronauts, 4 astronauts.
Okay, cool.
Astronauts do astronauty things, right?
Oh, of course.
The
Yeah.
2025 NBA draft will soon get underway in New York City. The first round of the draft begins tonight with the Dallas Mavericks in possession of the top pick. And lastly, a famous piece of 80s movie clothing is bringing in big bucks on the auction block. It's that brown patterned vest worn by actor Matthew Broderick as the title character in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, movie from 1986. It sold. What do you think? I'll ask you, Mark. What do you think
Oh.
that vest went for?
Yeah. I mean, do we have a picture of the vest, Albert? The Matthew Broderick
need to
vest?
see
Probably
the
not
vest.
without the caption as to how much it cost.
Yeah.
Google it.
All right, let me just think. I'm guessing, oh, there it is. Iconic film. I'm going to say $150,000.
Okay. Well, they had estimated that it would go for between $300,000 and $600,000, and it went for $280,000. $280,000 for the
Very
vest.
impressive,
Ferris
yeah.
Bueller's Day Off vest. There's
How
the
much
vest
did
picture.
remember they just auctioned a couple of weeks ago, they auctioned off Pee Wee Herman's bike?
Oh, I don't
How
know.
much did that go for? I felt like that went for like 150. I was kind of working off that memory.
Google it.
All right, we can find. Albert will find it.
Ferris
The Pee Wee Herman
Bueller's,
bike
there he's
sold
fast. Look at him.
Yeah, see, like same vintage, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same kind of 125,000. Yeah, so I thought that this might be in that same world, but it went for considerably more, huh?
280K for the vest. Yeah.
Wow. So,
This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
oh yes.
It's the coffee and the tea you don't even realize you need, and then once you taste it, you
You're hooked,
cannot.
baby.
You're hooked. You can't go without it. Oh yeah, it's some good stuff. They've got t-shirts on the website. They've got coffee on the website with very complete tasting notes. They've got tea on the website. They've got lots of stuff, and you get the discount just for being a Mark Thompson Show listener. 10% off. The code is MarkT, no spaces. MarkT at checkout gets you 10% off. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And we know that you will love it as much as we do.
Yeah, 10% off anything on the website, as Kim says. You know, you can get coffee, tea, whatever you want. Says, you know, you can get coffee, tea, whatever you want. I'm using the Sunrise blend is in my cup today. And I really like the Sunrise blend. Yeah, it's a winner. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Yeah, Mark T, 10% off anything. Kim?
Yep.
Well done.
Thank you. Hello.
Girl, you just woo.
Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
Listen to me. I don't want to hear you.
That was very inappropriate. Don't talk to me that way.
Where are my weed smokers at?
There's always been, in this country, 30 to 35% idiots.
That's pure speculation. Hey Mark, it's Jordan Santos here. What's a little line between friends?
We're in better shape, but I don't think we're in wildly better shape.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
Seriously, what the I love it when you're angry.
They are kissing my ass.
We could try ignoring it, sir.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done?
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
My words upset so many people.
I blame you.
I have never heard of something like that.
There is nothing in our history that quite compares.
Mark, can you describe what coffee you drink each day, such as it is a dark roast or not? What flavors are in it? Sorry, I know you don't have much time, says Susan Roberts. Well, Susan, I'd love to describe exactly what coffee I have every day, complete with how dark the roast is, and what flavors are in it. I think most of the information is available at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, since I drink exclusively. But I'd be happy to occasionally, you know, when Kim sometimes will ask me, I try to provide whatever information I can. And, you know, my coffee life is an open book. So, I just spilled water all over the technical equipment. So we were probably on a countdown. Hang on one second.
We had to wipe it off. I think we got that.
I don't think it hit anything critical, which is
Richard had a $5 contribution, and he says it's Swoon 10th Eve, and he'll be there with us.
Yeah.
Michael T, 97 for $5, which is
I
so
love
lovely.
it.
Thank
I
you.
love it. Thank you. Michael T, 90. I love it. Thank you. Michael T, 97. There were 96 other Michael T's. That's pretty amazing. All right, so that those taken can build their own detention centers for free. Oh my God, that's dark humor that is so great, Luis. Thank you. Oh my God. Guys, I am excited about tomorrow night. Those of you who are attending the June Swoon, you won't be disappointed. Kim will make sure that all of our luminaries get the link. We'll take care of that today. Luminaries is a ding word. And I'm excited to see or hear. People don't have to be on to see or hear. People don't have to be on camera. Everyone who will join us. But more excited for tomorrow's show, which includes tomorrow night. That's David Katz, the noted federal prosecutor, now defense attorney in Southern California. Looking forward to speaking with him. We've got some great conversations coming up as well. Thanks again to Sue Halpern. Her book link will be under this video.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Albert, thank you. Kim, thank you.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. And until tomorrow, we are out of time. So, bye-bye.